We're out on one of those things on the side of the road thing.
Okay.
Yeah, we've been walking up, just kind of searching, going all the way up.
It's on a hunch or?
How far are we far?
No, like.
About 40 feet in.
On a hunch? Like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know GPS had a on here. They thought they found.
That was me, a foot.
Last week?
Yeah.
What, the bone?
Yep.
What did GPS say when they came out?
They said that there was a deer, I guess, that had got hit by a semi 2 or 3 days prior. All this
So, for sure, I can tell you, just because we had a lot of dealings with them. And I don't know when, I have to go back and look at the records more.
She was wearing her pajamas. That is the detail that will stay with you. Not the highway, not the desert, not the silence that followed. The pajamas. Because when an 84-year-old woman goes to bed in her own home on a quiet Saturday night in Tucson, Arizona, she is not supposed to vanish before sunrise. She is not supposed to become a case number. She is not supposed to end up as the subject of a video that, 114 days later, still cannot tell you where she is. But here we are. What you are about to watch is not a cold case from decades ago. This is happening right now. The investigation is active. The evidence is real. And the questions surrounding the people trusted to find this woman are darker than anything we have covered on this channel. We are going to take you through every layer of this. The neighborhood. The night she disappeared. The road heading north out of Tucson. The fabric in the dirt. The deputy with a badge and handcuffs on his wrists. The federal agents crawling through drainage pipes. All of it. But we are going to do it carefully, because this woman deserves precision, not noise. Before we go any further, we need to be direct with you. This case involves deeply disturbing material. There are elements of this story that touch on suspected foul play, institutional failure, and the kind of coordinated silence that only makes sense when someone powerful has something to hide. If you are sensitive to content involving missing persons, potential evidence of harm, or allegations against law enforcement, please be aware of that before continuing. We are not here to sensationalize. We are here because Nancy Guthrie deserves the truth and the world needs to hear her name. If you are new here, welcome to CAC Crime Trending. We do not let cases go quiet. We do not move on when the sheriff stops returning calls. We stay. And on this case, we have been staying. Hit subscribe right now so you do not miss a single update as this investigation develops, because we can tell you with full confidence, this story is not over. Things are still surfacing, people are still talking, and the desert, as you are about to find out, does not keep its secrets forever. Now tell us in the comments, where are you watching from? Because people from all over the world have been following Nancy's case, and every single person who refuses to look away matters. Drop your location below and let us know you are here. Then stay with us, because what comes next will change the way you look at this case entirely. At 1:47 in the morning on February 1st, 2026, the Nest doorbell camera at the front of Nancy Guthrie's home disconnected. Not a power outage, not a technical glitch. It went dark. 25 minutes later, at 2:12 a.m., the same camera's software detected movement near the home. No footage was captured. Nancy had no active subscription, which meant the device had been continuously overwriting its own loop. Whatever it saw in those minutes was gone before anyone knew to look for it. At 2:28 a.m., the app connected to her pacemaker lost its signal. Her phone and her heart monitor severed at the same hour, in the same house, in the same silence that no one around her knew was happening. By late Sunday morning, Nancy had not logged on to her virtual church service, something she did every single week. Her family went to check on her. At 11:56 a.m., they arrived and found her gone. At 12:03 p.m., someone called 911. Deputies arrived within 10 minutes. They found blood near the front entrance of the home, confirmed through DNA analysis to be Nancy's. The doorbell camera had been physically removed from the exterior wall. Inside, there were signs of forced entry. Personal items had been left behind. The Pima County Sheriff's Department designated the property a crime scene before the afternoon was over. Nancy Guthrie was 84 years old. She lived alone in Tucson's Catalina Foothills neighborhood. Her daughter is Savannah Guthrie, co-anchor of NBC's Today Show. That connection explains why this case escalated the way it did within days. Federal investigators, forensic labs, and a combined reward that eventually reached over $1.3 million. This was not treated as a routine missing persons report from the moment it was filed. 2 questions run through everything you are about to hear. Who is the masked, armed man recorded at Nancy's front door, and why did it take 10 days before the public could even see his face? And why did the department assign to find her arrest one of its own deputies for kidnapping while that search was still active? Every answer in this documentary comes from verified reporting and confirmed public records. Nothing here is speculation dressed as fact. Stay with us. Nancy Guthrie had lived in her Catalina Foothills home for decades. The neighborhood sits at the northern edge of Tucson, where the city dissolves into desert, a place she and her late husband Charles chose for its quiet. Charles was a mining engineer who brought the family to Arizona years earlier. He died of a heart attack in 1988, leaving Nancy to raise 3 children on her own in the community they had built together. She stayed. The Foothills became the only home the family knew. She was described by those who knew her as a woman of deep conviction and generous with her space. On her property, she maintained a small guest house, a casita, which she rented out to various tenants over the years. She was known in her neighborhood. She had routines, including weekly card games and a virtual church service she attended every Sunday without exception. She had limited mobility. She relied on medication for a serious heart condition. She had a pacemaker with a connected phone app, a detail that would become one of the most forensically precise pieces of evidence in the entire investigation. She also had a Nest doorbell camera at the front of her home with no active subscription, which meant footage was not automatically backed up to a cloud server. That single decision would cost investigators 10 critical days. Her 3 children are Savannah Guthrie, the NBC Today co-anchor who took a leave of absence from the show the day her mother was reported missing and did not return to the studio until March 5th, Annie Guthrie, her older daughter, and Cameron Guthrie, her son. On the evening of January 31st, 2026, Nancy spent time at Annie's home for dinner and a game night. That evening was the last time any member of her family saw her. What happened between the moment she arrived back at her own front door and the moment her family found her gone the following afternoon is the question that has driven this entire investigation forward. Tommaso Cioni, Annie Guthrie's husband, drove Nancy home at the end of that January 31st evening. He told investigators he made sure she was safely inside before he left. The garage door opened at 9:48 p.m. and closed at 9:50 p.m. That detail is anchored to the physical garage door log, confirmed by NPR reporting and by Sheriff Nanos himself in an early press briefing. What is not anchored is what came after. The Pima County Sheriff's Office, led by Sheriff Chris Nanos, gave the public 3 different return times in the days following the disappearance: 9:30 p.m., 9:45 p.m., and 9:48 p.m. 3 statements from the same office about the same night. The only version tied to a physical record is 9:48 p.m. The other 2 were never explained, and the discrepancy was never publicly reconciled. In a kidnapping investigation, the verified timeline of a victim's last known movements is the foundation of everything else. An 18-minute window of uncertainty shifts the suspect opportunity window, changes which surveillance footage becomes relevant, and alters the sequence of questions investigators need to answer first. 3 conflicting times from one office is not a clerical error. It is a foundational gap that has never been closed. From the garage door closing at 9:50 p.m., the forensic timeline moves to 1:47 a.m., when the doorbell camera disconnected. At 2:12 a.m., the camera software detected movement, but no footage was recorded because the device had no subscription and had been overwriting itself. At 2:28 a.m., the pacemaker app disconnected from Nancy's phone. The pacemaker itself continued to function. Only the transmission channel connecting it to her phone and to remote monitoring went silent. That placed the last traceable signal from Nancy's body at 2:28 in the morning. Authorities confirmed early in the investigation that they believed Nancy had been taken against her will. She had limited mobility, was without shoes, and was not in possession of any of her medication. Officials said they did not believe she left on her own. Whatever happened at that address, it happened in the dark, in the hours no one was watching, during a window that the sheriff's office has given the public 3 different versions of when it opened. 10 days after Nancy disappeared, FBI Director Kash Patel released doorbell footage and images publicly on February 10th via X. The footage had not come from a cloud backup, because none existed. Patel said he personally called Google leadership to request access to Nest's back-end servers. FBI engineers recovered residual data from those servers and extracted images that would otherwise have been lost permanently. What the footage showed changed everything. A masked individual approached Nancy's front entrance in the early hours of February 1st. He wore a ski mask with cutouts for the eyes and mouth, long sleeves, pants, gloves, sneakers, and a holstered firearm at the waistband. He carried a black Ozark Trail 25-liter hiker pack, a Walmart private label backpack. In the footage, he raised a gloved hand to cover the camera lens and pulled a plant from the front of the house to physically block the camera's view. Behavioral analysts noted he showed no visible signs of anxiety and adapted quickly to the environment around him. Then came the detail that reframed the entire case. A source with knowledge of the investigation confirmed to Fox News that one of the images released by the FBI was captured approximately 3 weeks before the abduction, on a separate date from the others. The suspect had visited Nancy Guthrie's front door before February 1st. He had scouted the property. He came back with a plan. The FBI's forensic analysis produced a physical profile. The suspect was described as male, approximately 5 feet 9 to 5 feet 10 inches tall, with an average build. His clothing, backpack, and face mask were believed to have been purchased at Walmart. The backpack and holster became active evidence threads. Agents showed images of both to local gun store owners to try to match makes and models against recent purchases. Philip Martin, co-owner of Armor Bearer Arms in Tucson, confirmed an FBI agent arrived at his store with 3 pages listing approximately 18 to 24 names and photographs, asking whether any had purchased a firearm there in the past year. No matches were found. The FBI's reward opened at $50,000, was raised to $100,000 on February 13th, and grew significantly when on February 24th, Savannah Guthrie announced a family reward of $1 million via Instagram, saying the family was blowing on the embers of hope and acknowledging for the first time publicly that Nancy may already be gone. Milwaukee attorney Michael Hupy added $100,000. The 88 Crime Anonymous tip line received a separate $100,000 donation. The total reward surpassed $1.3 million. Savannah's Instagram post carried the words, "We believe she is still alive. Bring her home." If this case has your full attention right now, type "I am still here" in the comments. We want to know how many people are watching this with us tonight and refusing to look away. Because the more eyes on this case, the harder it becomes for silence to hold. On May 5th, 2026, FBI Director Kash Patel appeared on the Hangout with Sean Hannity podcast and made a direct public statement about how the Pima County Sheriff's Department had handled the opening days of the case. He said the FBI was kept out of the Guthrie investigation for 4 full days after Nancy disappeared. His exact words:
"The first 48 hours of anyone's disappearance are the most critical. And here's how these cases works. It is a state matter. It's a state and local law enforcement matter. What we, the FBI, do is say, hey, we're here to help. What do you need? What can we do?" And for 4 days, we were kept out of the investigation. And when we were finally let in, Sean, look what we did. We went in and got the...
He also publicly criticized Nanos for sending Nancy's DNA evidence to a private laboratory in Florida, the same lab the Sheriff's Department had a prior working relationship with, rather than to the FBI crime lab in Quantico, Virginia. Patel said he had had an aircraft ready to transport the evidence to Quantico overnight. That evidence sat in the Florida lab for 11 weeks before it was transferred. Sheriff Nanos responded the same evening with a written statement. He said a member of an FBI task force had been notified and was present at the scene on the night of February 1st. He maintained that the FBI was promptly notified by both his department and the Guthrie family, and that coordination had begun without delay. He said decisions about processing evidence were made on scene based on operational needs. Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche, speaking separately to News Nation, said the FBI was ready, willing, and able to help as much as possible. He acknowledged the reports of friction between the agencies and said a coordinated approach was the only path forward, adding, "We don't like interagency squabbles. Nobody likes that. That doesn't help the investigation." While this dispute played out publicly, separate institutional pressure had been building inside the Pima County Sheriff's Department itself. The Pima County Deputies Organization filed a unanimous no-confidence vote against Sheriff Nanos. The union cited concerns rooted in his disciplinary history, including conduct from decades earlier that had been kept from the public for 40 years. The union called for his resignation. The vote was filed while the Guthrie investigation was ongoing. The union stated the Guthrie case itself was not listed as the cause of the vote, though Nanos's handling of it had drawn sustained public scrutiny. By May 2026, Nanos confirmed to People magazine that he was no longer personally communicating with the Guthrie family. His words, "I personally am not." The FBI had taken over all family liaison responsibilities. Annie Guthrie and her husband Tommaso Cioni became targets of sustained online speculation almost from the first day of the investigation. What the public record actually shows is worth examining directly because the gap between what happened and what was claimed online is significant. Annie's car was impounded early in the investigation and held for weeks while it was processed for DNA evidence. It was returned in March. Forensic activity was documented at their home, including luminol testing and Celebrite phone forensics referenced in reporting about the property. FBI agents canvassed their neighborhood more thoroughly than they canvassed Nancy's own street, according to witnesses, going door to door, searching a wash behind nearby homes, entering a camper parked on the street, and accessing drainage pipes beneath the road. Volunteers searching that same wash found a pair of pants. Authorities collected them. No public update about those pants was ever issued. As the online attention intensified, poles, chains, pylons, and no trespassing signs were installed at both driveway entrances to the Guthrie property. Increased public activity had led to trespassing incidents and some arrests in the area. Nanos confirmed at a press conference that the Guthrie family, to include all siblings and spouses, had been cleared as possible suspects and had been nothing but cooperative and gracious throughout. Brian Enton, the News Nation reporter who covered this case from the first day and spent extended time on the ground in Tucson, told Parade he had never seen any evidence implicating any family member and called the sustained targeting of Annie and Tommaso pretty terrible. One other name entered the public record during the investigation. On February 10th, a man named Carlos Palazuelos was detained during a traffic stop in Rio Rico, approximately 60 miles south of Tucson near the Mexican border. He was questioned for several hours while his home and car were searched. He was then released without charge. Palazuelos told media after his release that authorities had shown his in-laws a photograph of a masked person and said it looked like his eyes. Investigators determined he was not involved. John Ramsey, the father of John Benet Ramsey, whose killer was never identified, weighed in publicly in May 2026 via News Nation's Brian Enton, advising the Guthrie family not to assume police know what they are doing and to scrutinize investigators' actions closely, drawing from his own family's experience with an investigation that never produced an arrest. Inside Nancy Guthrie's home, investigators recovered DNA that does not belong to her or to anyone in her immediate circle. That unknown profile is the single most consequential piece of pending forensic evidence in the case. The biological material was first sent to a private laboratory in Florida with which the Pima County Sheriff's Department had a prior working relationship. After 11 weeks, and following a formal FBI request that had been outstanding for over 2 months according to an FBI official statement, the evidence was transferred to the FBI's crime lab in Quantico, Virginia. where analysis was ongoing as of May 2026. Patel said when the FBI finally received the material, he had had an aircraft ready to move it overnight from the beginning. The delay in isolating the unknown profile is not technological. It is forensic accounting. Every DNA strand found inside the home must first be identified and attributed to a known person before the unknown target can emerge. That means accounting for family members, regular visitors, and anyone who had ever been inside that space over the years. Sheriff Nanos acknowledged the process at a neighborhood watch meeting, saying it moves at a snail's pace for some, but for his team it was doing exactly what it needed to do. He added, "I believe at some point in time we will make an arrest on this case." In March 2026, genetic genealogy testing was introduced. This is the same method that identified the Golden State Killer in 2018, more than 4 decades after his crimes began. It works by uploading an unknown DNA sample to public genealogy databases and tracing biological relatives to construct a suspect family tree without requiring the suspect to be in any law enforcement database. On the physical evidence side, approximately 16 gloves were collected across various locations near Nancy's home. Investigators confirmed that most turned out to be gloves discarded by volunteer searchers during the search operation. One glove, found approximately 2 miles from the home, appeared visually to match the glove worn by the suspect in the doorbell footage. The FBI confirmed it recovered a DNA profile from that glove and submitted it as an unknown male profile to the National CODIS database. That profile came back with no matches. In a separate development, the gloves found closer to the home near North Campbell Avenue were traced via DNA to a restaurant worker employed at a business across the street. Sheriff Nanos confirmed publicly, "The owner of the glove we found working at a restaurant across the street. It has nothing to do with the case." A hair sample was also recovered from the scene and transferred to the FBI. One earlier DNA profile recovered from the property had already been identified and formally ruled out, confirmed not connected to the investigation. The unknown profile in the home itself remains the active forensic target. Retired Pima County Detective Robbie Mayer, who solved Tucson's 1986 primetime rapist case after working through more than 4,000 leads, with the suspect Brian Lariva's name sitting in the pile before investigators reached it, offered this assessment in May 2026. "I believe the suspects' names are in those 50,000 leads. The question is if they can recognize it when they see it. Highway 79 runs 2 lanes north from Tucson toward Phoenix. It bypasses the interstate, bypasses traffic camera corridors, and after midnight it is largely dark and unpatrolled. Established search and rescue protocol holds that evidence disposed from a moving vehicle typically lands within 40 feet of the road. The terrain beyond that point is too difficult to navigate in darkness carrying significant weight. A group of civilian volunteers began systematically searching this corridor entirely on their own, without law enforcement authority, without funding, and without coordination from any agency. What they found across multiple visits followed a pattern that investigators have not publicly explained. A cooler at a rest area near the Highway 77 and 79 junction. When volunteers returned to that location on a subsequent visit, the cooler had been repositioned. No official explanation was offered. A partial remains discovery along the highway. Arizona DPS responded, and the official explanation given was a deer struck by a semi-truck several days earlier. The volunteer who made that discovery told investigators she did not fully accept the explanation. She kept returning. Then, on May 25, 2026, a couple who had been driving to Highway 79 regularly since Nancy's disappearance found a pajama top on what appeared to be disturbed earth approximately 30 minutes north of Nancy's Catalina Foothills home along the Highway 79 corridor. Ann and Todd from the volunteer search organization Voices for the Missing were present at the discovery. The Pima County Sheriff's Office was contacted immediately and responded to the scene. Deputies collected the garment as evidence. The discovery drew immediate attention because Savannah Guthrie had said publicly in an emotional statement, "How is it possible that we are having to make a video speaking to a kidnapper who took an 84-year-old woman in the dead of night in her pajamas with no shoes and without her medicine?" As of May 27, 2026, Authorities have not officially confirmed whether the pajama top belongs to Nancy Guthrie. Former FBI agent Jennifer Coffindaffer introduced a theory in May 2026 that reframes the possible motive. She argued on X that Nancy may have been targeted in what the security community calls a wrench attack, organized criminal networks that use kidnapping to coerce victims or their relatives into surrendering cryptocurrency access. Coffindaffer described the doorbell footage suspect as a low-level hired participant, not the architect of the operation, and referenced a January 2026 case in Scottsdale, Arizona, where two California teenagers aged 16 and 17 were arrested for posing as delivery drivers and invading a home in search of $66 million in cryptocurrency, charged with kidnapping and aggravated assault, as a pattern indicator of how decentralized criminal recruitment networks operate in the region. No direct link between that case and Nancy's disappearance has been established. Retired detective and FBI-trained hostage negotiator Lisa Miller, speaking on Fox News on May 23rd, expanded the framework further. She described elements of the Guthrie case consistent with a street-level execution of a more sophisticated plan, pointing to the advanced scouting visit 3 weeks before the abduction, the Bitcoin ransom demand, and the armed and prepped suspect as indicators of organizational structure behind what appeared on the surface to be a blunt operation. The target logic both analysts presented was this. Nancy herself had no significant known cryptocurrency holdings, but her daughter Savannah, as a high-income and nationally visible public figure, represented a plausible pressure point for extortion through a family member. Crypto security firm Certicay recorded 34 verified wrench attacks globally in the first 4 months of 2026 alone, a 41% increase from the same period the prior year, with estimated losses of approximately $101 million across those 4 months. As of May 27, 2026, Nancy Guthrie has been missing for 116 days. No suspect has been publicly named. No arrest has been made. No confirmed sighting has been reported. The unknown DNA recovered from inside Nancy's home is at the FBI crime lab in Quantico, Virginia. Genetic genealogy testing is active. A hair sample is under FBI analysis. The unknown male DNA profile from the glove near the home was submitted to CODIS and returned no match. Sheriff Nanos confirmed in May 2026 the labs are getting closer, and he believes an arrest will eventually be made. The Pima County Sheriff's Department has not held a live press briefing since February 5th. Former FBI agent Scott Augenbaum, speaking to 13 News at the 100-day mark, said the lack of public updates is often strategic. "You do not want to tip off the hands of the suspect," he said. "If the suspect is out there now, you do not even want them to think anything is going on." The suspect profile remains active. Male, 5 feet 9 to 5 feet 10 inches tall, average build, armed, carrying a black Ozark Trail 25-liter hiker pack. Confirmed to have visited Nancy's property at least 3 weeks before the night of February 1st. His identity has not been confirmed publicly. The pajama top collected by the Pima County Sheriff's Office from the Highway 79 area on May 25th has received no official forensic update. The 3 conflicting return times from the night of January 31st have never been reconciled. The pants found in the wash near the neighborhood were collected and received no public update. Carlos Palazuelos was questioned and released. No one has been charged. Retired Detective Robbie Mayer believes the suspect's name is already in the files. Former FBI profiler Greg McCrary said in February 2026 that this appears to be a targeted crime, noting the suspect did not knock on the door randomly and bump into Nancy. John Ramsey, whose daughter's case was never solved, told Brian Enton that the Guthrie family should scrutinize every investigative decision being made on their behalf. Nancy Guthrie's neighbors in the Catalina Foothills have placed yellow ribbons on their mailboxes. Those ribbons, a symbol used since hostage-taking cases in the 1970s, are still there. The memorial outside her home is still there. The volunteers who found the pajama top set their alarms before dawn. They drove out on their own time to a remote highway because someone had to keep looking. If you have any information, contact the FBI at 1-800-CALL-FBI or at tips.fbi.gov. The Pima County Sheriff's Department tip line is 520-351-4900. Anonymous tips go to 88-CRIME at 5208827463. The combined reward is over $1.3 million. Subscribe to CAC Crime Trending. Share this video with one person who has not yet heard Nancy's name. When the DNA result comes back from Quantico, when the pajama top is confirmed or ruled out, when the next development breaks, we will be here. We are not going anywhere.